With daily rolling blackouts becoming the new reality, many South Africans are turning to solar to power their homes. And yesterday, the Finance Minister made that option even more attractive. Those who install rooftop solar panels in the coming financial year will get 25% of their spend back as a rebate. There is a cap, though, of 15,000 Rand. The solar PV industry says the incentive is limited, though. To discuss, we're joined by the CEO of the South African Photovoltaic Industry Association, SAPVIA. That's Dr. Rethabile Melamu. Doctor, thank you for being with us. You're suggesting that government could have gone much further. Explain.
Good afternoon, Francis, and good afternoon to your viewers. We feel that the focus of the incentives is really towards households that are already affording of these systems. We feel that an entire low-income household have been removed from this incentive altogether. And so that's why we feel that it was limited. We also find that the incentive, limiting the incentive to solar PV panels, a bit of a surprise. We would have thought that the incentive would cover the entire PV system, which includes solar PV panels or modules, as they are known, the inverter, as well as batteries. Because that way end users, households will then be shielded from load shedding. And in particular, we really were surprised that the minister is just saying that those who can afford, those that have instruments available to them can benefit. And my aunt in Soweto, in Soshanguve, will not have access to the same amount of incentives because they in the first place cannot afford capital to put the system on their rooftop.
And this is so important because we had guests yesterday saying that municipalities may suffer because they are losing an income stream here down the line. That could affect the poor even further. So the rich will be okay, but the poor won't. I mean, are there incentives? I've often asked people, what innovative ideas are there for poor households? Could you put panels on the floor, for example? I mean, this seems aimed at people with extensive roof space in the first place.
Certainly, the innovations that exist, first, there are innovations that exist. However, this particular incentive does not address any of these low-income households. There is a company in the Western Cape that is manufacturing 20-watt modules, very tiny modules that enable households to power their battery, would be able to charge their batteries. Those that have Wi-Fi dongles will be able to charge their dongles. But by no means does it address their energy security needs. So that's why we are particularly concerned that in addressing the energy security issue, we are exacerbating the injustice by making sure that we continue to favor the haves at the expense of the have-nots. So that's why we called in that particular statement that we released that we hoped the powers that be would have consulted us as an industry association, as an association that works closely with the SMMEs, equally close to the end users, to really identify initiatives that would really support them. What most low-income households need really capital to access these, to be able to access the services and the products themselves. Yeah. So yes, there might be innovations, but they're limited. They will only really charge your cell phone, and households need more than that.
Yeah, and let's talk about the haves. I mean, I say that with some circumspect because we know that the middle class has a lot of debt. So this isn't a great relief if you are trying to go off the grid. You get 15,000 Rand back on your panels, but like you say, you need the inverters, the batteries. I think you gave an average spend. I mean, you could go all the way up to 200,000 Rand just to make the system sustainable if you are trying to go off the grid.
Absolutely. So the haves do have access to mortgage their banks. There are several instruments that those that have houses that are mortgaged can access. However, we still believe that the 25% that is kept at 60,000 rand is still limited. A household that has a 3-bedroom house would on average require a system that has the capacity of about 5 kilowatt. Now, that system costs anything between 95,000 to 200K, depending on the types of components that are used for that system. So already, if I spend 200K, I will only be able to get 15K back. However, I think it's important to note, Francis, that the solar PV systems do pay for themselves. If, for instance, you are used to paying a bill of 2,000 a month, it wouldn't be a surprise for that to be reduced by at least half, in some instances by 75%. I would also like to correct this notion of going off-grid, which is often misinterpreted. Going off-grid would require a household, the same household that I gave an example of, to invest maybe 3 times the amount of resources, because then you would have to oversize the battery. What going off the grid means is that you are cut off the Eskom grid altogether, that the wires that get into your household don't come at all. And I think most households, one, they can't afford to do so. As you've indicated, they are cash strapped. And really, it's not necessary to go that extreme, because you still have access to the Eskom or the municipal grid. But essentially, even for the haves, the incentive, we find that the incentive is limited. With that said, we would like to commend the government that they have taken the step in the right direction.
All right.
Yeah, and we do hope that in the future they will have better incentive, even for small businesses. Most of the incentives do favor sizable businesses. Yeah. Thanks,
all right.
Francis.
Well, we appreciate your time. So you're saying it's some relief, unfortunately not for the people who've already installed solar rooftop panels, but the people going forward. But you were hoping for more in future. Thank you very much from SAPVIA. That was the CEO, Dr. Rethabile Melamu.